Welcome to Dental Business RX. Practice success in 30 minutes or less.
Thank you for calling ABC Dental.
Personnel or staffing has always been a hot button in the dental industry, at least as far back as I can remember. And to that end, you could probably make the same statement about any service business. If you have friends or people that you know involved in any kind of a service business, whether it's, a restaurant or an accounting firm or anything, whether a plumber, etc., you probably, if you talk to them about their business, you've probably had an opportunity to hear about some of their personnel woes, which may not sound that dissimilar from your own. Now, that said, it seems, at least to me, that the past 5 years, we've seen these personnel issues, hiring, training, retaining, etc., become magnified and more problematic. And we see this regularly with newer clients. That's why a lot of the training on the MGE Power Program is focused on how to build and keep a productive team. I'll put a link on the episode webpage about the Power Program if you want to know more. So it's with all of that in mind that I plan over the next few episodes, actually, to focus on this subject of staff. We're going to hit on hiring, we're going to hit on training, we're going to hit on onboarding, as well as things that you can do to keep your staff for as long as possible to retain them, make it so that they actually want to be there, right? And for this week's episode, I'm going to cover something that you may or may not have heard of, or if you've heard of it, it's something that you may not be using. It's called group interviews, and it's a really fast way to screen potential personnel, especially when you have a large number of applicants. My name is Jeff Bloomberg, and I'm your host. And what I'm going to be covering here is I'm going to explain what this group interview process is, how it works, when to use it, and when not to use it, and a few other general tips when hiring. And I think the best place to start actually is a little bit of a disclaimer. I am not an employment attorney. MGE does not supply employment law advice. So nothing I'm saying this episode replaces good advice from your employment attorney. If you ever have any questions, you should have one that you can call. And I obviously leave it up to you to seek the correct counsel when applying things in your practice. And I say this only because employment law varies so wildly across the United States. I can only imagine how it varies as you go international. So you want to make sure that whatever you're doing, you're following the applicable laws to your jurisdiction. All right, so with that out of the way, what is this group interview? Basically, it's a way when you have a ton of potential applicants, maybe for the front desk or possibly dental assistants, to be able to process them quickly and select out the ones that might be a best fit for your practice. You know how to do this with 10, 15, 20, 30 people at once. I've seen group interviews with 50 people. When would you not use it? You would not use it when interviewing primarily providers, hygienists, associate doctors, etc. Those should be more one-on-one interviews. And obviously, if you're not getting a ton of responses to your ads, which that could be one of two problems. Either your ad is no good, because I've seen people, in the same area, one puts out an ad and they get 60 to 100 responses and another gets, 5. So the problem there was the ad. Or you may have a situation where there's just a shortage of that particular type of personnel in your area, maybe dental assistants or EFTAs or dental hygienists. I mean, you theoretically could use the group interview. If you had 100 hygienists reply to your ad, you could do a group interview with them. It's mainly, you're only going to use the group interview when you have a considerable number of people who have actually applied or have shown interest in the position. You would not use it when you only have a small number of people who are interested in the position. So usually when we see it used, it's when someone's looking for front desk staff or dental assistants. Depends on your area. And the way I'm going to do this is I have a handout, which actually I'm going to be referring to as I go through this episode. It's not all just made up, right? And if you want to get a copy of this handout, it's called Group Interviews. You're welcome to download it. We have a link to it on the episode webpage, completely free if you want to use it in your practice. This is the same handout that we give our clients. So how does this group interview process work? Well, step one, you would first place an ad of some kind. Now, usually, and this really, again, is area dependent, you may or may not include salary and various types of benefits in the ad. Okay. The reason why sometimes that can get a bit problematic is if you place an ad and it's got certain benefits and salary in it, and then people start calling your receptionist or your office manager wanting more details and wanting more information. You don't want to get into this stuff with people over the phone. You want to do this one-on-one. I see a lot of ads with ranges of salary, or salary based upon experience, whatever works for you. The idea is we want to get a lot of potential applicants when we do this. We're casting a large net here, okay? So if someone calls in off of your ad, which in a lot of cases these days it's email, but let's say somebody calls, hey, how much does this pay? Hey, how does this work? Hey, how does that work? Real simply, your receptionist or whoever's answering the phone will just tell them that you're going to be having an interview and set them up to actually come in for an interview. Now, I've had people say, should you tell people they're coming in for a group interview? I leave that up to you. I've seen a lot of people who don't. They just go, hey, you can come in for an interview tonight at 6 o'clock or tomorrow at 6 o'clock, etc. You want to make it simple. You want to keep the questions and the back and forth as minimal as possible because you want to get as many people in front of you as you can so you've got a large pool of applicants to pick from. Now, the only thing I'm going to warn you about here, if it's not an ad that requires somebody to call in, but instead they're emailing or their application, like something like Indeed, where you are going to be required to contact them, if you get an applicant, you need to contact them right away. This is probably the largest mistake I see in all hiring is someone throws out an ad and then they start getting applications with wherever they placed it, and they wait a week before they actually reach out to anybody and get serious about hiring. Generally, your best applicants are going to be gone fast. So if I get applications, I want to act on them same day, preferably within an hour max. I want to call this person right away and bring them in for an interview. So if I'm going to do my group interview, let's say tonight at 6 p.m. and again the day after tomorrow at 6 p.m., well, then I'm going to just have them come in. Hey, I can interview tonight at 6 o'clock or I can interview on Thursday at 6 o'clock. I'm just going to have them come in for an interview, okay, and expect to be here for an hour or two. Okay, so however you want to do it, when they call in or if you have to contact them, get them to come in for the interview. Don't add a lot of time between when they respond and when you actually reach out to them, or you will lose good applicants. So when you do the group interview is really up to you. A lot of our clients do it at like 6 p.m., 5 p.m., something like this, after patients are done, because you want the office cleared, okay? And who has to be here for this? Minimally, you want the doc and the office manager. You might have another employee there, a dental assistant or somebody else to help out as need be. And to prepare for this group interview, so let's say we're doing it at 6 p.m. To prepare for this group interview, we want to make sure we have a number of things. Number one, we want to make sure we have at least one blank pad and clipboard. You can just use the pad if you want, per applicant. You want to make sure you have plenty of job applications. You want to have a large enough space capable of seating everybody you're bringing in for the interview. You want some space off to the side where you can interview applicants one-on-one. That might be the office manager's office or the doctor's office. You might want to have some coffee or refreshments because people may be there for a bit. You'll see why in a second. You want to have a sign-in log for applicants. I've had people ask me, can I have a sign-in iPad? Yeah, I don't care. You want to have a way, basically, when someone arrives to the practice for the interview where they have to sign in and it stamps or they have to mark the time that they arrived. This is important. And you'll need at least, like I said, 2 people for the interview process. The doctor and the office manager are best. If there's no office manager, it could be the doctor and their spouse or a dental assistant, etc. So we've gotten a lot of applications. We've scheduled people for our interview tonight, and people are going to start arriving. So what do? We place our sign-in log near the door. People sign in with their name and time of arrival, and they're given a job application. You should have some form of an application. They may bring a resume with them, but you should have some form of an application that's gone through your employment attorney that asks all the questions that you want to ask to make sure it checks all the boxes, okay? So then you get everybody in. They've all marked when they've arrived. This way you can see who was late, which is important, right? And the first thing you would do is you'd have them all take a seat. Welcome to the interview. This would be the office manager, by the way. If it's the doc and the OM, the office manager does this. Everybody take a seat. Welcome everybody there. Do not collect resumes yet. Do not collect resumes, because then you're going to end up with a bunch of resumes and you're not going to be able to associate them with a person. You ask people to hold on to their resumes, and before we go any further, you're just going to go over the basics of what the job is. So the office manager has seated everybody, had people fill out a job application and has started and has them hold on to their resumes, okay? So now you're going to describe what position you are hiring for. This is of critical importance because this will save you a lot of time. This would include what the position is, what the duties of the position are, what the salary of the position is, what hours the person is expected to work, what the benefits of the position are, anything else you can think of that would be relevant to the position. You're going to have to, let's say you have 3 offices, and we're going to have to travel once a week, at least 45 minutes away. Anything that you think is important that these applicants know about that job, you describe right off the bat. Now, the reason you're doing this is, let's say 15 people have shown up for your interview, and 5 or 6 of them hear what you have to say, the salary, the hours, the fact that they're going to have to travel once a month or something like this, and they're like, I don't want this job. Well, then you're not going to waste your time sitting down and interviewing these 6 people who just aren't a good fit or don't want the job. That's important because it knocks that out right off the bat, and you don't have to waste their time or your time. So after you finish describing the job, the office manager would say, okay, good, so that describes the position. You can answer any questions at that point if you want to, or if they ask any, and say, good, if anybody is not interested, you're free to go now, right? You would say this in a very nice way, of course, and if you are still interested in the position, please stay. This way you weed out immediately anybody who just wouldn't be a good fit. Your office is open from Tuesday through Saturday, and somebody can't work Saturdays or can't work Tuesdays, or you just want to knock that out right off the bat. So then you tell everybody to take a quick 5-minute break. This way people can leave and it doesn't become a big thing. It's not like you have 15 people and 6 people get up immediately and walk out in a huff. You tell them, if you're still interested, please stay. We're going to take a quick 5-minute break. If you're no longer interested in the position, you're free to go. Thank you for coming. And then this way they can leave during the break. All right, so once the break is complete, could be like a 5-minute break, 10-minute break. This is why you have, refreshments, cheese, crackers, muffins, whatever you think is good. I mean, 6 p.m. might be a bit weird with muffins, but you get the idea. So once this is complete, everybody takes their seats again, and the doctor comes out. Now, the doctor is going to introduce themselves and tell the remaining applicants a bit about him or herself. Now, what type of things is the doctor going to say? Where they went to school, how long they've been in practice, what the purpose of the practice is. I mean, I don't care how many years they've been in this office, when the office moved, whatever you think is relevant or important. There's a reason you're doing this, but make it easy. Don't make it big, complex things. Like, hi, I'm Dr. So-and-so. I went to Tufts University where I got my degree, and I started practicing originally in the Massachusetts area, and then I moved to I've moved to Florida in, this year, and I opened this practice on this date, and I've been practicing for this many years, right? You want to give them some basic factoids about yourself when the doctor does this. Now, there's a reason we're doing this. There's a method to our madness. So once the doctor is done, so doctor finishes up, thanks folks for coming, it was very nice meeting you. I'll turn it back over to the office manager. So you turn it back over to your office manager. Now the office manager hands each applicant a pad and paper and asks them 5 questions pertaining to what the doctor discussed. There's a reason for this. We're trying to see, A, who is listening, B, who can actually can replicate what the doctor said. Because if you take a look at all training, what is training? Essentially, when you're training somebody, you're teaching me how to answer your phone. You're telling me, Jeff, you're supposed to say, it's a great day at ABC Dental. My name is Jeff. I can help you. You want me to say it exactly like you. Okay, like you want me to duplicate what you did. Well, if someone can't do that, they just can't do it. They can't say, it's a great day at ABC Dental. My name is Jeff. I can help you. Well, they're not trainable because all training is basically having somebody do what you did. So you want to see, can these people actually get it? So the doctor came out and gave them some facts about themselves. Now the office manager is giving them a quiz on some of these facts. So they asked 5 questions. So where did the doctor go to school? How long has the doctor been in practice? Of course, you're going to base these questions based on things the doctor actually said so that the applicants will have an answer. But 5 simple questions. At the end of the questions, have each applicant write a paragraph on how they feel they would contribute to the practice if they were hired. Then have them put their name and the date at the top of the page with their answers. Now, once they've all turned all this in, you have them turn in their quiz with their resume. Okay? Once they've turned all this in, now you're going to take another 5-minute break. During the break, and you got to hustle while you do this, you got to move quick. You're going to look through the quizzes and you're going to look through the resumes, but most importantly, the quizzes. And you're going to disqualify any applicants who had no references, let's say, on their resume. Maybe they got 2 or more questions wrong on the quiz. And this is a rough one because I've seen cases where people with everybody got 4 questions wrong and 2 people only got 2. You might interview those 2, right? And you want to read that paragraph they wrote because if the position requires writing skills, review the grammar in the paragraph and their spelling. And because if it's way off, this could be a problem. Let's say you have this person writing letters for the office and they can't spell or their grammar is terrible, you're going to have a problem. And you're finding this problem now based on this quiz and the paragraph they wrote at the end. So let's say we had 15 applicants to begin with, 6 left after we described the position. We had the doctor come out and give some basic factoids about themselves. The office manager does the quiz. We pull in the quizzes and the resumes and we look through it. And out of those 9 remaining people, 4 of them didn't get at least 2 questions wrong, have references on their resume, and their writing wasn't too bad when they wrote how they could contribute to the practice. So now we have 4 potential hires, all right? So now, what do we do? Because we're gonna want to interview these 4 people one-on-one now. So what we do then, after the break, we get everybody back together and we say, okay, I'm going to read off some names of the people I'd like to have stay for a further interview. If your name is not called, thank you very much for coming and we appreciate your time. And I'd read off the names of those 4 people. Sally Jones, Bill Board, whatever, right? Then the remaining 5 people who were still there would just go, they'd grab a snack and they'd leave. So now I got my 4 people that I got to interview. Now I'm going to get more into the interview process next week. As a matter of fact, when I was looking at the outline for this thing, it might be a 2-parter. It's going to, hiring tips. But this is where you're going to want to get into a real interview with this person, which is going to at least take you 10, 15 minutes. But you got 4 people, so you're going to have to cycle these very quickly. So a couple things I'll say, and it's a bit of a preview for what we're going to be talking about later. You're going to want to make sure, what if you're hiring for one position and 3 of the 4 applicants would be a great fit for your practice? Let's say I'm hiring for, a receptionist. And I have 3 people who would all be a great receptionist. Well, what should I do? Am I going to wrestle over it and just pick one? I might advise that you hire more than one. You might hire 2 or 3, and I'll explain that in the future episode because there's a chance, I don't know if you've had this experience before, where you hire somebody, you think they're great, and then they flake out. Had you hired 2, at least one would still be there. The other thing is, the one thing that has changed very drastically, especially over the last 5-6 years, is the hiring process has become a bit more condensed. It used to be you'd bring somebody in, you'd interview them. Okay, good. Maybe even with the group interview. You do the group interview and then you end up with your 4 people left in this scenario I'm describing, and then you interview them one-on-one and you go, great, I'm going to check your references now and I may bring you in for a second interview tomorrow. That was normal in the past. Well, not anymore. We're going to try and ideally make a hire that night or latest tomorrow morning. And I'll be talking about that in future episodes because the process has been condensed a bit, okay? One thing I wouldn't do, and I've thrown this out before, I wouldn't do quote-unquote working interviews. Look, this is a question for you and your employment attorney. Our employment attorney had to stop doing them years ago because if they're not an employee yet, what are they covered under? They're not covered under work comp if they get injured on the job because they're not an employee. Bit of a tricky situation. But anyway, so just to summarize, you've gotten through these quizzes. You got 4 people that look good. Now you're going to interview them one-on-one, and you do whatever your interview process is at that point and move forward. But you've got 4 people who more or less check the boxes, the basic boxes that you're looking for, and you were able to get to that point very rapidly because you brought in 15 people rather than interviewing them one at a time to find out the 6 that wouldn't want the job and the other 5 who, couldn't remember anything and their grammar wasn't going to work for the position you were going to put them on, or their spelling wasn't going to work. You've gotten to those 4 people right away, which is what makes this group interview process very effective. So then you do your final interviews and then you hire people. So in next week's episode, I'm going to be getting into the interview process a bit. What are you doing when you're doing this one-on-one interview? It would also apply if you're interviewing somebody without the group interview process. You're interviewing a hygienist or an associate doctor. I'll get into that a bit more next week when we really pull this hiring process apart. But I wanted to go over this. This was a quick one. It's a great tool to use. Our clients have been using it for at least 20 years. We use it, especially when we're hiring for a position where you have a lot of applicants. It's something that's very useful. It allows you to get down to the personnel who might be a good fit for your practice very quickly, and find the personnel that could be a good fit. Anyway, that's all I have for you this week. Don't forget, I have a handout for this group interview process on the episode webpage. You can download it for free. I also have a link to the MGE Power Program. If you want to know more about MGE, you can find us online at mgeonline.com or call us at 800-640-1140. Folks, have a great week, and I will see you at the next episode.